Hello Lower 6, Mr. Cottrell here, as you know, and I'm going to talk you through some ideas that we want to explore given that we are in lockdown, and I'm going to call it lockdown economics, and we're going to look around some themes and try and challenge you to come up with some answers. So what I want you to do is, as I'm going through this, just jot down a few ideas, but then think about the questions as we come up, and then I want you to prep up some brief notes about each one. So the first one that I'm going to look at is the idea of hospital beds, and with hospital beds we are thinking here some PPFs, production possibility frontiers. So what I would like you to do is to draw what you think a production possibility frontier would look like when we were looking at the trade-off between COVID-19 beds which are put aside for intensive care or to treat those sorts of patients, and beds for other patients who are maybe suffering from other illnesses. This has become quite a issue really, because obviously COVID deaths, very sad to hear the number, yet there has also been an increase in deaths for other reasons. So this is maybe a bit morbid, however I think it is a very useful thing for us to understand the scarcity issues. So can you think about what the shape of the line would be? Would there be sort of increasing opportunity costs, and then think what the possible opportunity costs of treating more COVID patients would be, and of course the challenge for the NHS and for the government, and for indeed any government, what would we need to do to shift the PPF outwards? Don't just think about the obvious, try and think about some clever ways that we could do that, and again perhaps think about some of the opportunity costs involved. Toilet rolls has certainly been quite an issue, certainly right at the start, and it created queues and it created shortages. Inevitably it is a cracking economic problem for us to look at. I'm sure there's a joke in there somewhere, and what I want you to do is to construct some demand supply curves and think about perhaps what the elasticities are, why the demand curve may be shaped in one way and why the supply curve may be shaped in another. And when the crisis started, what shifted? What moved? And that of course caused, there were some shortages, and there was there was queuing, and there was much anxiety. Perhaps the government or shops could have introduced different measures, and they certainly did. Maybe you can come up with them. I want you to also think about maybe the use of maximum or minimum prices, and also think about the equity issues here. What is a fair distribution? And finally, let's just concentrate a little bit around about what shortages mean. There is an idea that shortages are a key signal to manufacturers to change their allocation of resources. Do you think that this is something that we need to focus on in this particular product? Finally, I want you to consider economic growth. Now this is going to obviously take a big hit in this crisis. First of all, let's put that in some sort of model, put an ASAD diagram together and show where we've moved pre-COVID to post-COVID, or during COVID as an issue in society. The challenge for the government is to find ways to stimulate the economy. Well, it may not be stimulating the economy. What other things are the government having to do which isn't about stimulation? It's more about recovery. Inevitably they've had to borrow. What do you think the problems are going to be for borrowing the large sums of money that governments have had to do? Who's going to be impacted? And then finally, as we try to maybe come out of this crisis, what do you think is going to be more effective from what you know in terms of fiscal and monetary? So what you have is 3 diagrams to put together across all the subjects. Some additional notes and ideas. So you've got some things for us to chat about when we catch up, and my aim is that we maybe try and catch up on Wednesday or Thursday and talk through this, as well as talking through the homeworks from last week.